Something a little different this time, almost a before and after. The idea is that we look around and then come back later in the year when the autumn colours are glowing. And that's the second half of this video. Our destination is George W. Childs Park, just outside Dingman's Ferry in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. There are 3 waterfalls in this park: Falmer, Factory and Deer Leap Falls, on an approximately 1.2 mile loop. There's some elevation gain via lots of steps, but nothing like Ricketts Glen, the last video, a paltry 200 feet or so down and back up at this place. There is a very easy trail from the car park to the split at the bridge, just before the first official waterfall. There's a lot of water flowing and everything is lush and green. And this is a classic reason why you should scout a place, or at least give yourself plenty of time to explore before you need to start taking photos. From the Factory Falls overlook, there's not really much of a view of the falls themselves. As we looked, it seemed the photo ops would be on the other side. However, looking back upstream does offer a great view of the bridge across Dingman's Creek, so that will be our first shot. We continued along the southern side of the trail to the Falmer Falls overlook. Once again, it's quite overgrown. There is an overlook on the other side. I guess we'll stop there on the way back up. And there's also a bridge across the creek further down. So without further ado, let's continue. There were some interesting growths on the trees as we kept going. I'm not a botanist, so I have no idea what these are. If you know, drop it in the comments. As expected, the view of Falmer Falls from the bridge below was a lot better. As with most places, there are signs not to leave the marked trails in this park, so trying to find that perfect composition is a little difficult. This was the best I could do. Walking further along, the waterfall view opened up a little, but is then mostly obscured by what I think are hemlock trees. The third waterfall is Deer Leap Falls. The loop in the trail to get here offers a chance to cross over Dingman's Creek via an A-frame bridge, which is right above the falls, and that makes for an excellent feature in the image, when people aren't standing on it, of course. Whilst we were snapping away, Faceless brother-in-law was making friends with the local wildlife. And then taking some slow motion video. Walking back up, Mrs. Faceless stopped to photograph Waterfalls from the gantry we saw earlier, whilst I carried on up to Factory Falls. What really caught my eye here, apart from the waterfall obviously, was this mass of bubbles, and wondering if I could get that into the image. Well, after a little repositioning, this is what I got. Sadly, not really enough of the right motion, as the bubbles seem to just be bouncing around rather than swirling. With a longer exposure, the bubble simply turned into a white blob on a dark background. Still, quite a nice waterfall photo nonetheless. My time alone was short-lived, as Mrs. Faceless quickly joined me, having struggled to get a composition she likes at Waterfalls. You can see her tripod just to the right of me here, and this is what she got. So with the scouting done, all we had to do was wait for autumn. It's now the first week of November. Mrs. Faceless and I have been travelling, which you'll see in the coming weeks. There's still quite a bit of colour in the foliage, but with Mrs. Faceless back at work, it was left to me to revisit this location on my own. Walking down the trail, there seemed to be a lot of leaves down, and the odd tree. And when I got to the bridge at the start of the loop, it was obvious that a storm had recently blown through. With such a big tree down in front of the bridge and laying right across the waterfall that would have been the foreground, this location was a no-go. As I've mentioned before in my videos, I struggle with chaotic scenes as, to my eye, compositions have no flow but are just a myriad of points that the eye jumps around to. So with this spot a bust, on to the next location. The worst thing about this hike was filming the B-roll and then having to walk back and get the camera. Oh, for being on my own. An unbelievable amount of trees are down. But with no straying from the trails, the ideal position of just around here somewhere is not attainable. Ho hum. If only it was this tree in the middle that had gone. Indeed. The trees blocking the view haven't fallen. If we move to the right, yep. That hemlock, I believe, is just blocking it out. And more trees down. Nice little bridge though. Wow, I think that gives you an idea of what's gone through here. I'm now at Deer Leap Falls. The waterfall looks good, but thoughts of shooting from here using the stream as a leading line are problematic with so much deadfall at the edge of the frame, which is a shame. If we zoom in, There are some branches forming a nice arch over the waterfall, but the chaos at the edge of the frame is driving me crazy. I'm shooting now from low down to try and remove any big gaps between the foreground, midground and background elements. I'll then crop this in post, like this. Now it was time to move closer to Deer Leap Falls themselves, and as always, don't just pick one place and stay there. I wandered around the area looking for the best compositions for a good 10 minutes. I like to look through the viewfinder myself, but you can always use a cell phone if you want. And if you can find a good composition which involves sitting down, bravo! I picked this originally because of the lovely golden leaves and the two rocks anchoring the foreground. Unfortunately, I find the cloud behind the trees a little distracting. And this is where moving just a little left or right, up and down, can work wonders in removing those distractions. Also remember to keep looking around as you shoot. I saw these lovely reflections in the water. It may look like more chaos, but I can see symmetry which doesn't drive me crazy. Just to the right of the last shot was this rock face, oozing water, so I flipped the camera around and set about my composition, despite not having any macro gear with me. I also did my best to not stand under an extremely dead tree, nor slip on the extremely wet rocks. Very mossy root took my interest. Just behind that root was some kind of flower, similar to a dandelion, but I've no idea what it actually is. The difficulty here was trying to get a good picture in the low light, with a light breeze blowing, but eventually. It was time to work my way back to the car. So with the trees down and all the growth, still can't get a decent shot of this middle falls yet. It is there. So let's head to the overlook and probably be at the falls rather than in a position to photograph it. from the gantry, you have a tree right in front of you there, and they're letting another one grow just there. So let's see if we can make anything work around the obstructions. What I've gone for here is, ignoring this first one, it's the double falls. That just fits nicely into a portrait orientation. Fulmer Falls presented its own challenge, but I'm happy with this image. As I reached Factory Falls, I was starting to tire, and the chaos was playing havoc with my OCD. At the Factory Falls overlook are details of what was once a wall mill, which used the water flow of Dingman's Creek for power, right next to what is left of that old building. And a short walk from there, and I was back at the bridge having completed the loop. The storm had blown away the best of the foliage, but I still got some nice shots. Plus, as this park is open year round, I suspect I will be back to shoot in the winter, and maybe get some ice waterfalls. It's time to head back to the car. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed travelling along with us today, a like and a subscribe would be much appreciated. Until next time.